Welcome to episode 3 of season 3. I don't think we've called it season 3 yet.
Season 3, episode 3. I like that for season 4. It's going to be like one, maybe two episodes.
Yeah. I don't I don't know how I'm feeling about the seasons being different books because like 4 episodes is not a season.
Yeah.
We're not filming on the BBC, you know?
Oh,
So maybe season 1 is all the Twilight
yeah.
things.
Well,
Twilight.
we'll figure it out if we need to redo it. But
It doesn't matter.
anyway, chapters 14 through 20. This is
Oh,
a late
man.
night recording session for us, which we have never done. So if things get a little silly, that is why.
Yep. Some of us were literally at work like 15 minutes ago, more than
Yeah.
that now. But yeah,
The alarms going off and whatnot.
it was it was a time to be a bartender. One of my coworkers was really drunk the whole time. So it's cute. Anyways, but I made a lot of money, so it's fine, guys. I'm a bartender, if you don't remember. I feel like that's an important thing to say right now.
I mean, it's a little important. Also,
Regardless,
do you want me to cut out the fact that a coworker was drunk? Because I feel like maybe you don't want that for the internet for everyone to see, but I don't know.
it was his last day. It's fine. I've
Oh, okay.
never I've never said where I work either, so it's fine.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Anyways, guys, chapter 14. Thanks for listening to my personal drama
Oh,
and maybe judging me that I said that was fine to include in our recording. All right. This section, holy smokes. I I was into it. I was happy again, guys. I was back into Twilight. I've been, as you all know, grumpy. I have not been into the series for like a book and a half now. And I was into this section. I enjoyed reading it.
yeah, it was a good section. There was a lot that happened. I was really pissed off at parts of the section, but I
Oh,
was still,
for sure.
yeah, obviously. But
Yeah.
yeah, a lot happens in this section. I guess there's a lot of chapters. They were kind of short, weren't they? I feel like this is the most chapters we've had in a section.
Yeah, it was a lot of
Seven?
chapters.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, oh man. Yeah. Oh, I just looked ahead at chapter 15. I forgot even that happens this week. Okay, chapter 14. We got to jump in.
There's
It's
a
already
lot.
late. We have so much to say. All right. Chapter 14 opens with Alice saying how she is still throwing the grad party. Um, I will be addressing the grad party, quote unquote, later because Bella had a party for her high school friends. She didn't have like a grad party
Yeah.
with like sandwiches and like
The Midwest grad party.
not a Midwest potluck. Your aunt's there. She had a rave.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyways, we'll get into that more. But yeah, Alice is still throwing the party. Bella is outraged by this and thinks it's so dumb considering that the baby vampires are coming for them and they're maybe gonna die. She's pretty upset that they're having a grad party.
I also have to say it is a little weird because Alice says something about you're only going to graduate from high school for the first time once. And I'm like, yeah, but she's going to graduate from high school many, many times if she becomes a vampire. So
Yeah,
why do we care so much?
yeah.
You know?
Like she will graduate more than any other, like she'll graduate more times than a human. So doesn't
Yeah,
that make it less important?
it really does, in my opinion. But,
Yeah.
Alice just wants a party, I guess.
Alice is always looking for a party. The birthday made a little more sense, but
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
this not so much. All right. Um, my next note is about Jasper, who's going to teach them all to fight.
Yeah, my next note, where even is my next note? I think it's after that. Yeah, it's
Really
after
great.
that.
My note is Jasper's going to teach them all to fight.
Oh, okay.
because sorry, that was so funny in my head. Okay, because they have 1 week. Like this is all happening in a week, which Bella also freaks out about. So yeah, that's gonna happen. Um, and by all, at this point, the werewolves are included in that, or
No,
no?
that doesn't
No.
happen until the grad party or after the grad party.
Oh, right. Okay. Um, yeah. We also learned my phone auto correcting every time I put vamps, aka baby vamps, in my notes, to vamos.
Let's go.
So funny because I do have a Spanish keyboard. Fun facts. It's really annoying and I hardly use it anymore. But
Yeah.
again, I'm sorry, guys. I'm clearly not in a good
I know.
headspace.
I feel like there's going to be a lot of tangents. There's going to be a long episode, I have a feeling, even though.
Oh, no. Okay. Now this was very interesting. The baby vamos vampires are they explain why they're super strong, and I think this actually makes sense. Is they talk about that human blood is what makes vampires the strongest, and that baby vampires are so strong because all their like cells and inside of them all is filled with their own human blood, and so they're able to like feed off that and gain strength. Now they say for a full year, which this is where you kind of lose me, but none of Twilight is based in science, so it's okay. Uh, but yeah, so that's their explanation for why the newborn vampires are so much stronger than the rest.
Which makes sense. I also have a note about that happened just before this where it's talking about that oh, sorry, I'm trying to read. That Bella's mom is not going to be there for the grad party because she wasn't able to make it because I think her husband was injured or something. Um,
Yeah.
and she makes some comment about one person I don't have to worry about getting killed this week. And Edward rolls his eyes at her, and she's like, "Why aren't you taking this seriously?" And he just smiles and says, "Confidence." And I can just picture Robert Pattinson doing that. But I am just like, why aren't they taking it seriously? Because my guess is that none of them, other than Jasper, have really fought other vampires much before. Maybe
Yeah.
one or two of them, but like not
Not
an army
20.
of newborns.
Yeah.
Like, and nobody seems to be taking it too seriously, except maybe Jasper. Like, I don't quite get that, but
Yeah. And at this point, they kind of think they're outnumbered. Like it
yeah,
doesn't make sense.
yeah.
Once the werewolves get involved, it makes sense that they're feeling more confident. But
Yeah. And they
yeah,
make even a point to say that the newborns are stronger than Emmett is, which is kind of crazy. Also, imagine how strong Emmett was as a newborn, like crazy.
spooky.
Yeah, so I don't know. That's something I take issue with, and it kind of never gets addressed. Kind of this whole section, I'm like, I feel like you all should be a little more concerned, but okay.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Um, okay. After discussing kind of where the Cullens are currently at in regards to the baby vampire attack, Bella heads to La Push. And this is where things get a little interesting.
yeah, Jacob comes to pick her up, and Edward makes some comment, or what is he? He makes some face. And Bella's like, "Oh, what's wrong?" And he's like, "Nothing." And she's like, "Oh, you're not listening to Jacob, are you?" Because he's apparently arriving. And
Mhm.
he's basically like shouting in his head. And Edward's like, "Yeah, it's kind of hard to ignore." So that's just something of note that I go back to in my notes. But
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah. So Jacob picks up Bella. They head over to his house. Another notable thing is Billy is not home and he is over at the Clearwaters. And it says because Sue's been having a hard time. And we're kind of going to talk about that more later. But yeah, so Jacob is exhausted and actually falls asleep. And Bella's like watching TV while he sleeps on the couch. for their quality time. Uh, yeah, yeah. Okay, my next note is about Bella as she's sitting there in the house thinking about Edward and wanting it to be his choice. Do you have anything else you want to say about Jake sleeping?
No, really, really don't have much to comment on there, but
Great, great. Um, yeah, so Bella says in this chapter that she specifically wants it to be Edward's choice and his venom to be the one that poisons her so that in some way he will own her by being the one that has created her. I find this creepy and quite problematic.
I literally highlighted this and my comment was, "You, I hate this."
Yeah.
All I have to say. I'm like, yeah, nope.
Also, like, could have been good. Like, I think it could have just ended at the first part of being like, this is the sign that Edward has totally accepted me as a vampire, has totally accepted me into his family. Like, you could have leaned into that, it would have made sense.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, Bella isn't forcing it, but no.
I
Like,
have like quite a few moments in this section where there's like someone talking about something or talking to someone, and I'm like on board with the whole conversation, and then there's like one sentence, and I'm like, I hate this now. Like
yeah,
that's
yeah,
happened multiple times in this section with
yeah,
many characters, honestly. So
yeah. It was a wild ride this week, guys.
yeah.
um, yeah. Then things just continue. I don't necessarily want to say spiral down from here, but they do kind of spiral down from here pretty much in my view. Um so Jacob wakes up, realizes all this time has passed, and says like, I wanted to do this, like I wanted to do it right and build up to this, but I just want to be like overt and make sure there's no miscommunication as the reason it doesn't happen. I love you, Bella. I want you to pick me over Edward. He like puts it all out there, which one, I think she already knows. Jacob even says this, right? And I don't hate him for this. We're coming to me being very mad at him soon, but I think this is not the worst. I'm all about overt communication. As you guys know, it's been one of my main frustrations with the series. So I can appreciate this, but he should have stopped there.
Yeah, yeah. I like honestly didn't have a ton to say on it at the end of this chapter. I have a lot to say on the next chapter, but I just was like I was surprised by this. I didn't realize this happened, and I was like, this is crazy. And Edward held his shit together really well because he clearly knew that this was coming.
Yeah.
Like, which I just, yeah, yeah, I, yeah. But the next
Yeah.
chapter, man, I
Oh man.
Jacob's
Oh
worst
man.
chapter ever, hands
Yeah.
down.
Yeah. And
No
Charlie.
questions. And Charlie's. Is that next chapter also? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's jump into it. Okay, chapter 15. It starts off, Jacob is talking about how he's a glutton for punishment, and that's part of why he's gonna like keep pursuing Bella. It's this longer thing where Jacob is like, well, do you want to just cut me off and never see me again? And she's like, no, you're my friend, I want to see you. And that is essentially enough for him to say, I'm going to keep pursuing, trying to get you to fall in love with me and pick me over Edward. Whatever. Now it is going downhill from here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Um,
And then she, oh, go ahead. We're gonna say something.
oh, oh. I think we're about to say the same thing.
That he, or what he calls her mean for some reason. What is it for? I don't even know.
Yeah. So in this, she says, Jacob, like, you're being mean or something like that after this like response to him being like a glutton for punishment or whatever. And Jacob responds and is like, no, Bella, you're mean. And she realizes like that's actually true, that she's being selfish by like clinging on to this friendship when she clearly knows it's going to end by somebody getting hurt. And she's like, I am mean, I guess.
Yeah,
Which,
I got so pissed off here because I'm like, she is absolutely not being mean in this scenario. Like, I just got so mad that like he said that and that she agreed with him, which is also something that happens multiple times in this section where I get so mad because I'm like, Bella just goes along with something and I'm like, no, this is your chance. Like,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, he does not step up to be the like the strong character we've been hoping for in this section yet.
yeah,
Let's hope it comes in Breaking Dawn. Um, yeah. I thought I wasn't like as mad about her in this scenario agreeing. I mean, I think it's like rude, like it was not like cool of Jacob, like, and him pointing out that she's being mean. Like, if you did that to me and I really felt it was true, I'd be like, you're right. Okay, done.
yeah.
Bye.
Yeah, I'm not mad at her in this moment. I'm mad at Jacob for calling her mean. Like,
Uh,
this whole
yeah.
chapter is me being mad at Jacob.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I do feel like it is like good. Like it's good for Bella to realize she is being selfish in some ways by like having this friendship when it isn't going anywhere. Like she could cut it off, you know,
Yeah.
and she like has those two. Anyways, that's all the criticism we're gonna give to Bella because in this next moment, Jacob freaking kisses her. Uh she
Jacob
tries to
assaults her, to be clear.
yeah,
Very clear.
yeah,
She does not want to
100%.
kiss.
A
He,
100%.
yeah, straight up assaults her. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, it would and how it's written, it's like not hiding away that it's like sexual assault. And
no.
it honestly like freaks me out. Like it was a disturbing chapter to read because Stephenie Meyer seemingly made it all sound like okay and no big deal. And I don't know if that's her cultural background growing up. I don't know if that's like really how she felt. I don't know if that was an accident. I don't know if this is just the early 2000s. I
Yeah.
don't know, but it does not come across even a little okay now.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so Jacob kisses her. She tries to shove him away and she literally can't. And so it is in the book, guys. She freezes, like she just completely emotionally shuts down and just waits for it to be over and him to be finished. Like
Yeah.
that, like, that's the part that I'm like to like say it that overtly and then pretend that that's fine. Like,
Yeah.
so messed up. So messed up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, man. Um, yeah. So then she totally shuts down. He finally stops and she immediately punches him in the face. Thank goodness. Unfortunately, she breaks her hand doing so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. hmm But then she lets Jacob drive her home.
Yeah.
What?
I didn't even really think about that. Yeah, that's
So
pretty.
weird to me. Like she says, I'm leaving. I'm calling Edward. I'm getting out of here. I don't even. Then she's like, I don't even have to call Edward. I just have to get away from you. And Alice will like see me and send someone. And then Jacob's like, no, no, no. Let me bring you home. And she's like, fine.
Yeah.
What?
I just didn't really even think about that because I was just so pissed off at Jacob. But yeah, that is crazy.
Yeah, it's just like minimizing it even more, and him trying to make it be like it's okay, it's fine. I'm like a good guy.
Yeah.
Ugh. Um. Yeah. Then he drives her home. He drives her to her house, which is important to note because she's like, you should have brought me to the Cullens where there is a doctor. um, yeah, but he obviously can't bring her to the Cullens, although maybe he can because he goes to the Cullens later in the book.
I know I had some questions about that, but
Yeah. Um, but yeah, he brings her home. And then, do you want to talk about Charlie, so it's not just me ranting for the rest of this chapter, giving the play by play?
Sure, sure. Yeah, it's really, really bad. I am no longer team. I literally literally said this reaction. I was like, oh my God, I hate them both. I'm officially just Team Carlisle now. Forget Charlie and Jacob. I'm just Team Carlisle now. So yeah,
The merch.
yeah. Um, so Jacob arrives and no, Edward isn't there yet. No.
No.
Um, and Charlie's there and asks, like, what does she go storming off? He asks what's wrong with Bella because she is like upset, and he says Jacob says that Bella thinks that she broke her hand, and he asks how did she do that? And Jacob laughs and says she hit me, and Charlie laughs, which at that point I'm like, whatever, that's not like he doesn't know. But
Yeah.
then Charlie asks, why did she hit you? And he says, because I kissed her. And Charlie says, good for you, kid. Yeah, it's so bad. It's so, so bad. Like,
Yeah.
that's your reaction to your daughter punching someone in the face for kissing her is good for you, kid. Oh, yeah, I
No,
can't.
it's so gross. It's honestly, yeah, it's so upsetting. I can't
Yeah.
do
And
it.
then, Bella calls Edward, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
And tells him,
yeah. And Edward is pissed. And my notes literally say, "Yay, the only person acting appropriately, including Bella."
yeah, yeah,
Ugh. Also, we should just note, I mean, like this chapter would be very triggering to read if you had been sexually assaulted.
yeah,
So, like, I would not, people's reactions, like, I would just skip most of this section. I would literally jump to the grad party because, yeah, both the actual, like, writing of the event in the book as well as, like, everybody's reactions around it, like,
yeah. It
I,
is
I would
really,
not do it
really
yourself.
bad.
Yeah. Ugh. Um, yeah. Charlie then says another brilliant parenting line where he tells Bella that maybe she should have picked on someone her own size.
That was the next thing I had highlighted. Yep.
What? That's what you say to the person who's doing the beating up.
Mm-hmm.
You don't tell the kid who just got beat up by somebody 3 grades older than them, maybe pick on someone your own size.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really bad. It's just so bad. Mhm.
What? It's not good. Also, he hasn't even imprinted on her. Maybe, honestly, maybe if he imprinted on Bella, he would be less awful.
Oh, I
Because,
absolutely think he would be. Yeah, 100%. I think he'd be less like it would be better. It would all be better. Because it's all about like protecting people or whatever they need. And this clearly is not protecting her.
yeah,
So,
it's about what Jacob wants.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we also kind of skipped over in the car ride on the way over. Um, they're talking about what happened, and Bella's being like really mad at Jacob, and he's literally twisting every single reason she says to be mad or that it wasn't okay what he just did, and twists it to how like she was into it, and obviously that was a great kiss, and like she felt that, like, which again, so messed up. Again, made me mad she let him drive her. Like, yeah. Anyways, just to note, like, the tension is very bad at this point, and we didn't really talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um. Okay. Then Edward gets there. Oh, this this is what we've been waiting for. This is why we like the all-powerful older males, not for them to be dumb little teenage werewolves for the touch her and you die trope. At least me. That's what I'm here for. And we finally got it. Not
Hmm.
quite even that dramatic, unfortunately, but a little bit, a little bit.
Yeah. This is
Hmm.
another point though where I have
You're
I'm
not about
all on
it.
board with the whole like thing between Edward and Jacob and Edward like calling him out on like but Jacob's like arguing with him and I'm on board with Edward's whole thing until he says she is mine and I'm just like I hate that. I just hate it.
No,
Like
I do. I hate that.
yeah.
It's not good. But I will give edit Edward credit. The dyslexia is really full force today. Um, in his argument with Jacob, one of the things, he says, like, if you touch Bella, or like if she comes back ever like hurt again, I'm gonna like rip off your limb. If you ever like kiss her against her will, like again, I'm gonna break your jaw. And Jacob's like, well, what if she kisses me because she wants to? And he says, well, then that would be okay. Which I do think, like, in the midst of all this, like, good job, Edward. We really see a turn for his character, where he's
Yeah.
like finally like listening and respecting Bella and what she wants. And it's like clear even in this heated fight with Jacob.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was happy about that.
I agree.
Yeah, I am not about the she's mine, you're mine,
Yeah.
any of that possessiveness. I'm not
And I
into.
think that was pretty much like all of the things that I had notes on, where it was like the conversation that I was on board with. And then there was one line at the end. Almost all of them were some weird possessive thing, except maybe one of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I mean some books do talk like that still, but I do think this is like very dated. I hope it's just dated. I don't know. I don't know. It's not. It's not great. Okay, we do get some lighthearted moments though, however, after
This is
this.
gonna be the Emmett line.
Of course. So I have multiple things about Emmett coming up. Uh yeah, so uh Edward drives Bella to the Collins house so that Carlisle can fix her hand. And when they get there, Emmett's like, what's wrong? And she's like, I punched a werewolf. And then he
Yeah,
laughs.
the delivery. You gotta say, he asks, "Did you fall like down again, Bella?" And she says, "No, Emmett, I punched a werewolf in the face." That's so good. I literally laughed out loud at that one. I think that's the hardest I've laughed reading this series so far.
So funny. So funny. Yeah. Also that we find out that Emmett is the jack for the car. Like Rosalie is working on her car and she didn't get a jack. It's just Emmett holding up the car.
I literally didn't bat an eye at that. I'm like, yep, that makes sense.
It was so funny. So funny. Oh, um, okay, and then I just have two more notes for 15. One being Rosalie then slips up. She makes a line about Jasper's gonna win the bet.
Yeah.
Uh, yes, and we eventually find out that Jasper and Emmett, I think it's just the two of them that
Yeah,
are
I
in.
think so.
Yeah. They have a bet about how many times Bella is going to slip up after she becomes a vampire, aka how many people is she going to kill. Um, so, yeah, yeah,
That's a little messed up, but also not surprising.
yeah. Like
I'm a
I
little
do.
surprised at Jasper, to be honest. I'm not surprised at Emmett, but
Yeah, yeah, being like so high empathy. I do think it kind of makes sense that Edward said Jasper bet much higher than Emmett did. And he like wanted that to be true because he was tired of feeling like the weakest link.
yeah.
Yeah. So it makes sense if it's more like not that I think this is characteristic of Bella, but like I secretly want her to slip up more than I did, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the chapter ends with Bella contemplating, are there any human experiences that she isn't willing to give up? And this is after contemplating that she would like want to go out and kill people when she's a vampire, which she correlates to being like she won't be her anymore. And this is kind of the first time she has really struggled or dealt with the idea that she's not going to be her anymore when she's a vampire. So, yeah, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add from chapter 15?
Nope, that's all I have.
All right. Chapter 16 opens with wardrobe dilemmas, aka the person stole all Bella's clothes, so she doesn't know what to wear to graduation.
And in comes Alice.
Of
Of course,
course.
an
Of,
emergency. You gotta call Alice.
of
Or
course.
Alice, really. Not you don't have to call her.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So Alice just shows up because she knew that Bella was gonna be upset. So she just like had gone out and bought everything for her. Clap. What a friend. Um yeah. And it
I
is
also have to say it's a little extreme. Bella punches the wall because she's so upset about the person taking her clothes. I'm like, all right, that's a bit much, but okay. But
I don't know. I feel like you're so mad about all these things you can't control, and then all of a sudden you're like, all my clothes are
okay.
gone. On top of
Also,
everything else, all my clothes are gone.
also think about it. She has a brace on one hand, so that means she punches the wall with her one good hand she has, which is her left hand, which I assume she's not a lefty. I guess we don't know that, but just that's a little anyway.
Yeah,
Minor.
yeah. Ugh. Um, okay, but then there's kind of a turn in the atmosphere because Bella realizes that whoever stole all the clothes from her and all her stuff is the same person who's making all the baby vampires in Seattle. And I'm curious, was this like a yeah, of course, or were you like,
I
oh
was so mad that they didn't put this together already. I remember being so mad the first time I read it because I'm like, why wouldn't you assume that? Like,
yeah,
it's obviously you know it's a vampire. You know this other person is a vampire. Like, why would you not assume that? I just remember being so mad about it, and I kind
yeah,
of forgot that they weren't assuming that right now. So,
yeah. I thought this was weird. They would just piece this together.
yeah.
I mean, I guess unless you're like, why would it be about Bella with this other person? Until you're like, oh, wait, isn't there a vampire literally who's trying to kill Bella right now that we've just left hanging out in the wilderness for 3 whole books now? Oh, that's right, there is.
What? Crazy.
Yeah, it just seems like so obvious that that's the conclusion. Yeah. And I don't, because why would the Volturi be looking for her clothes? Unless, I mean, earlier, you know, that I thought maybe it was like they thought Bella was the one creating all this havoc in Seattle and it was proof. But yeah, we obviously don't think that anymore.
Yeah.
Anyways, so there's that. That was very, yeah, I was like, we know. Why don't you know?
Yeah. And literally nobody has put this together because she
No.
tells Alice, who wasn't aware. And then Alice is making sure that they don't tell Edward until like after graduation, which is so apparently Edward also is not thinking that, which how is nobody thinking this?
No.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah. Um, yeah. Okay. Edward rides with her and Charlie to graduation. Okay. I do want to talk about Jessica being so nice at graduation because like didn't we all have this experience? I definitely did at like a small town high school.
Oh
I
no,
was
I had a graduating class of over 600 people and it was like that. Like,
not, yeah, like this is so high school. Like
yeah.
everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, remember?" And we've been friends for forever and like all
Hmm.
this like, fake nonsense. Uh yeah, so that's just some classic high school graduation weirdness. Glad Jessica's fitting the cliche.
Yep. I also did end up feeling just the teeniest bit guilty when they're talking about driving to graduation and how Charlie had gotten stubborn about like her riding with him because it's like a parent's rights at graduation or whatever. And I thought back, I'm like, I definitely didn't drive with my parents to my graduation. I definitely drove with my friends. I'm like, yeah. So that was funny.
I think I drove myself because we had to
Yeah.
be there so much earlier than our parents.
Oh, I spent like the whole day with my friend Kate, and we were driving around, and we have pictures of us in our cap and gown taking pictures with like all these random signs. Like I have one of us with the Home Depot sign. I have no idea why we were doing that, but that's what we were doing.
I love that. What a time.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, then we have the graduation ceremony, and it is clear from Alice and Edward's body language that Edward is confused by whatever is happening in Alice's head, but he doesn't say anything. And then Bella tells him the realization she's had, which he does not react well to.
No.
Um, but before we talk about that, uh, we re- Edward reveals what Alice was thinking to distract and keep her mind so busy that Edward would not be able to hear these thoughts. And it is that she was translating a speech into Arabic and Korean Sign Language.
I literally didn't have any notes on that. I'm like, yep, okay. Like,
I was like, what? Like, it's just, I don't know. I'm like, it tracks. Like, it makes sense that they can do that. They've lived for however long, all the education, blah, blah, blah. But, like, that's just some of the random details just like throw me. Like, why? Why?
but I guess like it also makes sense because she has to be thinking like deeply or like hard about something in order to like keep her mind off of what she's trying to hide from him. So like it should be something that's like challenging, you know? Like it's a weird thing, but
It's just so random and
yeah.
funny that I don't know. Um, yeah. But yeah, then Edward loses it. He basically has to leave graduation because he's not doing well and he's not doing a good job hiding it.
Yeah. To be clear, at this point the ceremony is over, so it's not like him getting up and walking out of the graduation ceremony, but
It's after the ceremony.
yeah.
He won't go to lunch with Bella and Charlie.
Yeah.
Hmm. Bella and Charlie do go to lunch, and this is just, Charlie is not a good dad. Like in this section, he really does not shine. But even just in these little things, like he takes her to the lodge, which is his favorite restaurant that she doesn't like, and like then he says he won't go to her graduation party. And like I get it more now being like I understand more that it's like a rave party, but like it just seems weird to me that neither of her parents would show up for her graduation party and her mom obviously had reasons,
Yeah,
but her
I didn't think anything about him not going to the party because in my mind, I think it's because I watched the movies and I knew like that the party was like that kind of party. Like,
yeah.
so I didn't have a problem with that. And there is a moment of this conversation that I do appreciate from Charlie where he says, what does he say? Oh, he's like said something that he wish he thought that to get her something like for a graduation present. And she's like, "Don't be silly, Dad." And he says, "It's not silly. I feel like I don't always do everything for you that I should." And I appreciated him saying that.
Yeah.
And like, but obviously actions speak louder than words. So I like still am not Team Charlie at this point. But um, and then she just says, "That's ridiculous. You do a fantastic job. World's best dad." And I'm like, this is another moment where you could have taken the time to said something, but also like I don't think Bella really is aware that her parents aren't good parents. Like she's just used to it and is fine with it. So, yeah.
I'm really curious how Stephenie Meyer feels about them as parents.
Yeah.
You know, like does she think they're bad parents? Does she think it's like fine? Like, does she, like, I'm curious. We obviously get the vibe that like everyone is on the same page that like Renee is a mess and like Bella had to take care of her. But the more we hear about Charlie being like not a great caregiver either, then it just makes me mad that like the book is overt that Renee is not a good mom, but not overt that Charlie is not a good dad when they both struggle just in different areas. And that's just sexism and having the expectation that women have to be perfect parents and dad showing up a little bit gets them a gold star, which I'm just not about. So yeah, feels like those vibes to
Yeah,
me.
yeah, it does. Um, there's another moment where like Charlie is like trying to say something good, like because Bella is talking about, or no, he says about how he needs to teach her to throw a punch because apparently he didn't do that because she broke her hand. And Bella's like, "Oh, I thought you were on Jacob's side." And he says, "No matter what side I'm on," or actually, he says, "No matter what side I'm on." That I thought he clarified he was on Bella's side. That's not a great start to this. I didn't catch that. But he says if someone kisses you without your permission, you should be able to make your feelings clear without hurting yourself. And then he talks about how to do the correctly punch. Um, but then he like says, "Oh, hit him in the gut next time." And she's like, "Oh, next time?" And then he's like, "Oh, don't be too hard on him. He's young." And I'm like, that could have been like a good conversation, but then you say that and excuse his behavior because he is young and it just pisses me off.
And like, so is Bella. Like,
Yeah.
she's not like an old lady.
Yeah. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah. Ugh. Um, yeah. Then Charlie brings her to the Cullens house, and we get a lovely visualization of the like the driveway to the Cullens house out in the woods, having all these trees lit up, and there's a million lights everywhere. And surprise, surprise, Alice has gone way over the top, which brings us to chapter 17. Chapter 17 is the party.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the Cullens house is a club. Alice has transformed the whole space. It's like the hot cool kid party. So, what a time. What a time. Um there's like lots of like small talk and like things in this section. So if anything stood out to you, Amy, feel free to jump in. My first note is that we find out Alice has had whatever vision we've been waiting for. Like the thing that is supposedly the thing she keeps missing. That's the vision that Bella thinks she has had.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, Jacob shows up.
Bum, bum, bum. But he doesn't show up alone.
Oh,
He also shows up with two other werewolves, Quill and Embry, who we later learn are his like bodyguard people
do we
and
learn
friends,
that? I think Edward refers to them as his wingmen, but
his wingmen. Yeah, 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 you're right. You're right. Not bodyguards.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
but they're like a posse, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess in the context, I imagined it more as like not his wingmen for like hitting on people, his like wingmen to like keep him safe.
See, I
Because
just had it as context as like they're just like a group that goes together. I didn't really have specific context behind it. or read
Yeah.
into specific context.
It really doesn't matter that much.
It really doesn't.
Being they're there. Which leads me to the question, how? Aren't they
Yeah, what
breaking?
I want this treaty. What's up with this treaty? I thought they couldn't be on each other's land. But Bella invited him, but I feel like that doesn't change anything. Like, I don't know.
Like Bella's not a Cullen at this point, you know?
I'm gonna Google this right now. How did Jacob come to Bella's grad party? Let's see what the internet has to say. This might take me a second to find a result, so we can keep
Yeah.
talking.
Yeah, no, well, because it's also confusing because earlier when Bella invites him, she says, like, you should come. Oh, but I realize, like, then realizes he can't. It's breaking the treaty. And, like, Jacob, like, agrees with her. There's nothing that Jacob says that would lead us to believe it's cool if he's invited,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Does the internet have any notes? Any
No, I can't. I'm not finding the results I want to, so maybe.
someone knows?
I was just about to type something else to like rephrase it to see if I could get better results. And this is spoilers for future books, so if you want to not be spoiled, fast forward a bit. But I typed Ken Jacob, and the first like suggestion that pops up is can Jacob and Renesmee have a baby? And now I don't know what I was going to type. Whatever. We're not going to figure out this answer. I'm not going to look it up.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, so that seems like a plot hole to me. Uh, yeah. Then Bella does something that really freaking annoys me, which she tells Jacob she forgives him. Tell me your vibe on this, Amy. Are you thinking she says this to like brush him off because she's just like, get out
Okay.
of here, just saying
The
whatever to placate you?
Yeah. Okay, but before we get to that, the thing before that is he inappropriately touches her again,
Oh, yeah.
where he puts his hand under her chin and pulls her face up and asks to have a few seconds of her time. And I'm like, really, dude? Like, you just assaulted her and you come to her grad party? Like, obviously she's mad at you, and then you do that. And then he has the gall to apologize for that, even though he just did it again. And yeah, I don't know why she accepts his apology. I feel
Yeah.
like she just says it so that she can figure out what's going on with Alice's vision, and she doesn't actually mean it in this moment. But
Yeah. Like she's just trying to like get him to go away.
yeah.
Yeah. Ugh. Yeah. So this is all not good. Okay, and then things escalate and get worse because Jacob wants to know what's going on and feels entitled that he should be able to know what's going on. And so he tries to block Alice. Like Alice comes up to Bella to see what's going on, and then Jacob tries to block Alice and Bella from like moving and forcing both of them to tell him what's going on. Again, not okay at all. Um, thank goodness Jasper immediately appears. Love that. Love Jaspy boy. Um, yeah. And then things just like get very tense. And then Alice decides it's okay and that they can know what's going to happen. Jasper is not happy about this, but then Alice tells them about the vision. Uh, and basically, it's determined. Well, this is later, but they eventually decide that the wolves are going to fight with the Cullens.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then Edward invites them to the strategy meeting.
Yeah. And Bella gets very upset about the werewolves being a part of it, which I kind of have a problem with because they're all very assuring that this is a good thing. And but also I did have like when I was reading my notes before we started recording, I was like, I also get it because so many people have like lied to her or like hidden the truth from her about what's
Yeah.
really going on, that it's very possible that she is concerned that things are not going to go as smoothly as what people are saying. So
Yeah.
there's that.
Yeah. Yeah, but it is I think it's interesting she has such a problem with all of them putting themselves at risk for her. And while I can empathize with that, it's also like you're human. Like you're the breakable one here and they're not as much.
I think it's also very ironic that she is so upset about them sacrificing anything for her when she was literally admiring like that third wife from the story from like the tribe
Mhm.
that they were telling and like
Yeah.
wants to be that person who makes the sacrifice but is not willing for anyone to make a sacrifice for her. So that's
Yeah.
interesting. But
Yeah. Yeah. Which again, it does fall in line with the like Max people pleaser. I have to do everything for everyone else, but no one can
yeah.
do anything for me, parentified version. So I do think that is like, again, like an accurate character move for Bella. But yeah, yeah. This is kind of random, but I was thinking about how like these characters don't really have arcs. Like none of them. Like the most arcs we get are like Edward and Jacob's arcs. And Edward just kind of becomes like more understanding of Bella's perspective. And Jacob's arc is he becomes a werewolf.
Yeah.
Like, am I missing something? Like, I literally think like Bella is like kind of the same character for 3 books now. She like changes her mind about some stuff, but
Maybe
she doesn't have a character arc.
yeah, maybe I don't remember like all the details, especially like character arc specifically with Breaking Dawn, but maybe the whole series is very similar to how all the books are individually, where everything happens at the end,
Yeah,
you know?
maybe. Yeah. All
I
right.
don't
Well,
know.
everyone be looking for some character arcs in Breaking Dawn.
Because we haven't had them yet.
Yeah, it's just so weird to be like, how many pages have we read at this point? Like probably like 2,000 pages.
Yeah,
And
something
we
like
haven't
that.
had one character arc that's more than like people changing their minds.
Yeah.
That's insane. Okay, I just had to comment on that. Okay. Should we jump into chapter 18?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Chapter 18. They're meeting at the baseball field da, 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 for the strategy meeting.
Yeah. And I was this before? I don't know. I don't know if it's before they meet or after, but Edward and Bella are talking and Bella points out that Alice said that Edward was in Texas like when he was away last year tracking Victoria and makes a point to be like she could have gotten the idea there to have this newborn army because that's a thing in the South. And that is something I completely forgot and something that's not mentioned in the movies. And I'm like, oh, that actually makes sense. Like, and I feel like it's kind of important detail. And but he makes a point to be like, but only is it pronounced Aro or Arrow? Anyway, I don't know. But he is the only one who knows exactly how Alice's visions work. And um Bella is just like, I feel like thinking very critically for once and has some good points here. And she's like, yeah, he
Yeah.
would know best, but Tanya and Irina and the rest of the people in Denali would know enough. And Laurent lived with them for so long and he was still close with Victoria. So he probably shared that with her. And I'm like, Bella, putting stuff together. Way to go.
Yeah. Yeah, I do think good for Bella. I also think it's weird that all of a sudden all the vampires are dumber and all of a sudden Bella is smarter. It just seems weird to me. Like I'm all about Bella being smarter, but like it's just weird. It's just weird that no
Yeah,
one else
I
has thought
I
about this.
do agree that it's weird, but I also am glad that Bella is like thinking more critically and has some more like epiphany moments because it makes me like less like wanting to shake her and be like, Bella, come on, pay attention kind of thing. And it just makes it more interesting to me to like have a main character that
For sure.
realizes things that you don't, you know?
For sure. I really nearly exclusively like smart, clever main
Yeah.
characters,
Yeah.
which is maybe part of where, like I've said, Bella is not my favorite protagonist. Again, it's just so funny to me that I think me and Amy like the books the least of everyone listening to this podcast.
Yeah.
Anyways, okay, I do think that all happened before they went to the baseball field. So,
I think it did too, yeah.
yeah, excellent interjection. Uh, then they go to the baseball field. Actually, I think maybe the conversation with Victoria happens at the baseball field before they walk up to people.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe, yeah, maybe before the werewolf show up or something.
Yeah, because like they get into the clearing and then Edward
Yeah.
sets her down and then they like walk normally over to the Cullens.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm just scanning it and that is when it happens. So
yeah, okay. Yeah, because that's yeah, my notes then say that she's thinking about Victoria because obviously this is where she first
yeah.
met them. And yeah, so then she kind of like has this like realization. Um yeah. Do you remember if it is Victoria with this army of baby vampires? Do you remember if that is true or not?
Um, yeah.
Okay, great. No questions. I think I
You
also
you didn't watch, do you know?
know. I
No.
no, I do
Okay.
know. I do know.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't have me convinced that you know based on you saying that.
No, I do know. I think. Let's move
You
on.
didn't watch the movie this week, did you? Because there were some spoilers. So,
Oh, got you. Yeah.
yeah. So I definitely know. Before that, I wasn't 100% sure, but I was pretty sure about
Okay.
what I thought. So,
Okay.
yeah, we'll learn next week.
What a time. Yeah. Okay, we also find out Alice is super unnerved to be blind because all the werewolves are coming and she can't see anything that happens with the werewolves. So that's interesting. Um, but then the wolves come and there are 10.
I was
Count
shocked by this. I was
what?
shocked because I went and counted. I was like, which ones do we know? And I'm like, I think the movies just leave out two of the werewolves completely, unless I was not paying attention. But I'm pretty sure they're just not in the movie. I'm like,
I don't
I
think
can
they are.
count eight. Like,
Yeah, I don't think the two youngest werewolves are in the movies.
yeah, I think so. Or
Yeah,
don't think so. Whatever.
yeah. Yeah, so four new werewolves have joined the pack.
And
Four.
remember last week when we were all like, have Seth and Leah changed yet? We're like, oh no, they would have made that more overt if that was the case. And it was, turns out that Sam, well, we'll learn that later, won't we? From Edward.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
we'll get there.
We'll get there. Ugh. Um,
But I
okay.
was going crazy here, how Bella was not seeming concerned at all that there was four new werewolves. She had no thoughts about it. Wasn't like, who could that be? She was just like, yep, there's four new ones. Okay, moving on. I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. She's mostly surprised like that Jacob didn't tell her.
yeah,
But even that, she's kind of nonchalant about. So
yeah.
yeah, whatever. Um, yeah. And yeah, so then Carlisle welcomes everyone in classic trying to keep the peace Carlisle mode. And then Jasper begins to demonstrate some like attack styles that he thinks the newborn vampires will have. And he starts out with Emmett because he says Emmett just relies on his strength. So he's going to be the most similar to the newborn vampires, which I think is funny and a little insulting. Sorry,
Yeah.
Emmett.
I made a comment about that too. I thought that was pretty funny.
Um, yeah. He then like goes through and does demonstrations with all of them. I thought this part was so interesting. Like this kind of had me like gripped because we don't have a ton of them like fighting each other like amongst the Cullens. And so everyone quick guess in your head who came out. It wasn't like a bracket, so we don't know who came out on top. But so it was so interesting. So Jasper won in Jasper versus Emmett. Alice won in Alice versus Jasper. Edward and Jasper had a dead tie that Carlisle had to cut off because he was worried they were showing too much of their skills to the werewolves. Which
So
I just,
bad.
yeah, it's like, maybe this is going too far. Let's cut this off.
Yeah.
And
So
then
I
it,
think by default, Alice is winner. Like,
yeah, because Jasper, but my only thing is like Jasper or Alice versus Edward because they have the
yeah.
weird mind games.
Because the whole thing with Atlas versus Jasper, she's fighting the whole time with her eyes closed, which
Yeah,
I just love.
so good. And just like she's like just moving at first, like just a step and a step. Like, yeah, and it talks about the werewolves being like very afraid of her at this point, which I love. I
Yeah.
just love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also like that Jasper specifically has Alice go second because he wants to demonstrate to Bella. He knows that Bella is so anxious about Alice fighting. And so he like wants to show her that like she doesn't have to be worried because Alice is a baddie,
Yeah, I
which I
know. I made a comment there, like, because I like just thought that was the sweet moment that Jasper was like making sure that like Bella knew that Alice was gonna be okay. And I remember being really into like Jasper's character and liking him a lot the first time that I read the books. And I feel like they don't give him a lot of like those sweeter moments in the movies. So like I knew that I liked him a lot, but I'm like couldn't remember exactly what the reasons were why, and this was like definitely one of them. Like I'm like,
yeah.
that's just sweet. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah, he's such a good vampire. Oh man. Um Another thing to note is that while Jasper and Edward are fighting, Alice comes over to stand next to Bella and threatens her.
Just casually. I got my eye on you. Just like that she says in a low voice first.
Literally.
Which I really enjoy that we have no context about what that's about before
I
that.
yeah, I thought it was a joke, like
Yeah.
at first, you know? Like,
I
yeah,
thought it was like to make sure she was okay or something. I did not get that it was like her threatening her.
but it is. She's threatening her because Bella keeps thinking about how she'll just go like run to the fight and like all this stuff that is like she's just wanting to be like self-sacrificial and dumb basically. So
I thought Bella had some stupid plan to try and get bit during this fighting or something. I was like, is she that stupid?
I'd be so dumb
I know.
trying to become a vampire in the middle of a newborn vampire battle.
I know.
Someone quick bite me just a little bit. Oh, nonsense. Um, yeah. Okay. After that, and Jasper does all the demonstrations, then Jacob stays behind. The rest of the wolves leave. Well, first, all the wolves, the vampires stay very still, and the wolves come and smell them to get their scent so that it'll be easier for them to distinguish them in a fight, which I thought was smart. Um, and then Jacob stays behind after the rest of the pack leaves to talk more strategy with Edward specifically. Um, And during this time, they're trying to figure out where Bella should be. And they realize that Jacob's scent will cover up Bella's scent so that he should carry her to uh, wherever they're going to hide her.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And they test it out and make sure that that works, and it does. So,
Yes. And then they determine that they're going to use Seth as a cell phone, aka Seth is going to go with because of the
yeah.
mind reading between the pack.
I did really like this moment because Edward's talking about the plan and saying about that um they'll meet her like afterwards and whatever, and Jacob's like, what, are you just gonna leave her with a cell phone? And then Edward's like, you have a better idea? And then Jacob's like, oh, actually I do. And Edward says, oh, again, dog, not bad at all. And I'm like, I like this weird dynamic between the two of them. I like the interactions where they're not just like blindly hating each other and actually have to work together. I enjoy their dynamic then.
It's also such a weird, when you say it out loud, it's such a weird thing to say.
Yeah. Again, dog, not bad at all, you mean? Yeah.
What?
Uh, I also we skipped over the fact or the part where Bella is bonding with Jacob in his wolf form and he licks her face.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Weird.
a weird moment. And then the Cullens are just like looking at her like, what is happening?
Yeah. No.
Uh,
Also,
so
in light of everything that's just like, oh, I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah.
Weird.
Now at this point, with him in wolf form, I feel like Bella actually has forgiven him.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I think that's true.
yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah. That's the end of my notes for
Yeah.
19.
I think that's the end of mine too. Yep.
All right. And then do you want to jump into chapter 20?
We're skipping 19?
Right. To 19.
Yeah, let's do 19.
Good plan. Yeah. Great, great. I just
Which
have a couple notes really for the next two chapters, but specifically this one is pretty short notes. It was not a long chapter either.
oh,
But
we did kind of miss, I think it's at the end of chapter 18. Yeah, we did miss where Jasper has a thought that Edward is really upset about, right? That's
oh,
chapter end of chapter 18, I'm pretty sure. Um and it turns out that like Jasper's thought, which he realizes is not the best idea, but is to have like Bella be at the field when the newborns are there because they would be completely distracted and very vulnerable, and
yeah.
realizes it's not a good idea, and Edward is very against it. But then chapter 19 we learn that Bella likes that idea. So yeah,
Yes.
and I get really annoyed because I'm like, even Jasper realized that it wasn't a good idea. Like nobody thinks that's a good idea but Bella. Like
Yeah. But do you think, because my vibe was Jasper does think it's a good idea, it's just a risky idea for
yeah,
Bella, you
that's what I
know?
should say. He does think it's a good idea, but it is definitely risky. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
but also I feel like they still are they're not worried at this point about the
No.
numbers because there's 7 vampires, 10 werewolves, and against like 20 newborns. So
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
aren't concerned. So
Right. Yeah.
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 So yeah.
Hmm. Okay. Chapter 19.
Yeah, yeah.
Great. So we're in Bella's room after we're back at her house. She's exhausted. Or is this the next morning? Yeah, it's the
Yeah, it's
next.
the next day. She slept like all day.
Yeah. Hmm. Um, yeah. So Edward and Bella work on a compromise. And I actually think they do pretty well here. Um, Specifically, Bella is like into Jasper's idea, like Amy just said, and she says like she wants to do that. Edward says absolutely not. And then Bella is kind of like, well, I want to be with you. Like, I don't want to be apart. And so, if it's really the odds are so good that one of you could even sit out, which is a joke they make earlier, why can't you sit out? Like, why can't you be the one who sits out and we stay together? Um, and Edward actually takes this like really seriously, and he actually like thinks about it. And I specifically like that uh, Edward's wording is basically he says like you proposed two options. You like had your boundary that you want us to stay together. You gave two options for me to either stay with my family and have you there, or for us both to be gone. So now I need to make the option. I need to make the decision for the option of those two that I'm comfortable with, which is actually a great example of how to have real compromise. Like in relationships, like I think this is actually a very good moment. So
Yeah.
how about this? Yeah.
Yeah. They don't come to like the resolution of their compromise till later in the chapter, but um I did have a note that I thought was pretty funny in this whole thing where at the beginning when Bella was talking about her wanting to be in the clearing and be in the fight. That Edward made a point to say that Alice doesn't see her in the clearing. She sees her stumbling around lost in the woods because she can't find her way to the clearing, which I just thought was pretty funny, honestly. But um yeah. And then we learn, unless you have anything before this, about Edward getting an insight to the pack and their thoughts with
Mm.
um what happened the day before. So I don't know if you have anything before that, but
Yeah, my only other note is just about um, just a note to say that Bella was talking about the third wife in her sleep.
yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyways, but talk about the pack dynamics because this is quite interesting.
yeah. Well, one thing we learn is that Jacob is second in command and never told that to Bella, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we do learn about the fact that Jacob didn't tell Bella about Leah or Sam or the other two new werewolves because he was ordered not to by Sam. So, and I said Leah and Sam, and I meant Leah and Seth because I keep messing up those names. But yeah, so Sam said that they couldn't tell anybody, but we also learn that Jacob can give commands and they have to listen to those because of him being second in command. But I am curious why Jacob didn't tell her that, and if it was like a command from Sam for him not to tell her, or if he intentionally didn't tell her that. So that's something I'm curious about. But
Yeah.
and then we learn about I it was so hard for me to not Google the answer to this to see if we get it about let's see about who was it? About Emery. Embry, not Emery. And he had his mom was a member of a different tribe, I think it was. She
Yeah.
wasn't, yeah. And then she to came to La Push, and then I when was Embry born in this? Anyway, it was assumed that Embry's dad was like she had left him when she had moved, and then Embry was born. And but it turns out because Embry turned into a werewolf that he has to be related to one of the like ancestors that was a werewolf, which means that he's the half brother of either Jacob, Sam, or Quill. And I did not remember this at all, and it was so hard for me to not Google what the answer is, and I really hope we get an answer. So this is where they're talking about it being like a soap opera, which is very, very accurate. Also,
Yes,
I can't imagine having like nine people's constant stream of thoughts playing at you all the time when you're a wolf. Like, that's crazy.
that's awful. Yeah. The other thing to note is that everything about Embry's like parental line is really being stirred up by Leah specifically. Like she is like I mean, I don't know that this is totally accurate, but this is the vibe I'm getting. Like she's disgruntled, she's mad at Sam. I also think like we find out there's the dynamics that like Sam can hear her thoughts and Sam has hurt her so bad, but then also she can hear Sam's thoughts about Emily. Like, yeah, just like very complicated and messy. And basically, she's like upset about this whole situation. So then she's just like stirring shit up,
Yeah.
uh, everybody.
Yep. Also, I did have a note here about the fact that we get a lot more werewolf lore than I remembered in the books. So I'm like not itching for some werewolf book now because we get more than I remembered. It's just not super
Yeah.
relevant to the plot. So it's not like
Yeah.
none of it's in the movies, really. I mean, the Leah stuff is, but
Right. Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Oof.
But then I also have questions. So, I'm like, I feel like Embry doesn't have to be one of those people's sons, because I'm assuming that they had multiple children, like, because it was like their great grandfathers or something. Like, it could be like a cousin of one of them, you know? But
Yeah, it does seem kind of like a stretch to me that there's only three people in the whole tribe that are like direct descendants.
yeah,
Or,
I'm looking at it now, and Edward says the prime candidates for his father are
okay.
Will, um, Josh Yulee, or Billy Black.
Yeah.
But I'm like, that makes me think that there's a possibility of other people. But anyway,
Yeah.
I also
I
had a
don't,
question at one point. I'm like, I am surprised that the Volturi didn't go and like kill off all of the descendants of the werewolves, you know?
yeah. Yeah.
Little plot hole, but
Yeah. 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 The only reason that I would think they wouldn't is as far as we know, the werewolves have only come in contact with vampires like kind of the one time, maybe, like
Mhm.
based on the legend. Uh, and like, I don't think the Volturi would get involved for two vampires dying, or you
Yeah.
think there's more later. I guess it's not like so clear in the
Well,
legend.
yeah, I think in the legend, because they talked about how there had previously been covens that were only like one or two people, which is why the
Oh yeah,
now is like the pack is as big as it is now is because there's more of them. So I feel like
yeah,
there was
yeah.
more.
But
Yeah,
yeah, even then, for it to be like one or two vampires every like couple decades or something, like I don't know that the Volturi would get involved.
I
But
guess.
it's strategic.
It's just
If
the whole like mortal enemy thing. I'm like, wouldn't they care about that, you know? But maybe, yeah, I don't know.
But I'm getting the vibe these were the only werewolves.
Yeah, maybe.
So then maybe the Volturi just don't know. I don't know. Maybe we'll get more when the Volturi come.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah. Moving right along. They then head back to the clearing for a second night in a row. Um, and I thought this was where Bella and Jacob were like bonding together, but maybe it was in the first night. And
they did, it was both times. There was
okay.
more like here because I had a note about what did Bella say? She said something about, I guess it's later on in here, but she says something about how in his wolf form she felt more like the way that Jake used to be, and it was easy, effortless friendship that was as natural as breathing in and out. And I'm like, it is 1,000% because he can't talk, and lately he has been saying idiotic shit. That is absolutely why she feels like that.
Is that the truth? Oh. And that's actually all my notes on 19. I don't know what else you would like to add,
Let
or if there's
me
anything you feel like we've missed.
scroll through my notes because I was making comments on so much crap that I don't need to talk about. I didn't get the chance to look through all of my notes. I did have a note here about Edward and Bella's relationship and their growth, and that it made me glad because now I can tolerate them being a couple. That where Edward says something, or Bella says that she's sorry, and he says to not apologize and never to be afraid to tell him how she feels. And I'm like, yeah, I just thought that that was a nice moment. And yeah, I don't know. What other notes do I have? I just had another note about that everyone was being really chill about this fight, and I was curious like what ends up happening because I genuinely don't remember. And I am curious if we even see the fight since Bella is apparently not going to be there because I don't remember the fight at all. It's very possible we do see it, but I just do not remember. So we'll find out next week. Um,
Yeah, yeah. I do kind of remember the fight.
you do. Okay.
So, yeah. Anyways, we'll see. Yeah.
I think that's about all the notes that I have for that chapter. So, last chapter, chapter 20.
Chapter 20. Oh man, not my favorite chapter. It's fine. It's a fine chapter.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it's fine. Okay, so everybody's feeling all prepped for the newborn vampires to come. So good for them, I guess. Like you said, they're being real chill. Um we didn't mention, but earlier Alice basically convinces Charlie that Bella should stay at the Cullens house with them. So that is happening. We then find out Alice is not going to be there, and it's just going to be Edward and Bella alone. And this is some of the first time they're like really alone, even though they're alone all the time because Charlie's asleep. I don't know, whatever. So, yeah, so they're at the Cullens house. It's just the two of them. And Bella says, one, something important, she finally feels ready to become a vampire. She's ready for the transition. Um, but like she mentioned earlier, she wanted to figure out what human experiences she was unwilling to give up before she transitioned into being a vampire. And basically, what she decides is that she wants to have sex with Edward. That's her one thing.
You know, the one thing that could very easily kill her.
Yeah, I think this is so stupid.
Yep. Yep.
Like all of the human experience, and you're like, I want to lose my virginity.
Yeah.
It's so dumb. It's so dumb. And like, yeah, also the argument is dumb. And just even her being like, well, I'm gonna be different. It won't be me. And so like I want to like have this experience because I don't know if I'm gonna be me after. Like if you really don't think you're gonna be you, then there's like so many things that you
Yeah.
should be like desperate to want to do. But
Yeah.
it's just the one.
It's
Yeah,
really stupid.
I think this is so stupid. It's so stupid. And they like really play out this scene. They never directly say it, obviously, because it's YA, but they're like making out and talking and hinting and blah, 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 blah. And it's so dumb. It's so dumb.
Yeah, found it pretty funny when he was like, "Oh, tell me what you want and you can have it." And she says you and he says I'm yours and smiles. And then she like tries to make a move and it's like, "Oh, he clearly does not get what she's saying."
He does not. They end up having some back and forth here, and it turns out that Edward is resistant for a couple reasons. One, that at first he is acting like is the main reason, which I do think is a big reason, is for her safety. Um, and the second is we gradually find out that he is worried that Bella is going to hell. And so he wants to do this right according to the human heaven rules, basically, is what they say.
The human
um,
heaven rules.
heaven rule, which means that they have to be married before they can sleep together. Um, I think this doesn't, the logic train does not make sense in this. Edward does not believe he has a soul, yet he's kind of concerned that his virtue is the last part of his soul that he does have, but he doesn't have a soul. But in case he does have a soul, he needs to hang on to the virtue because he's already murdered people. This is literally what he says. Second, he definitely has to save Bella's virtue, who he is also turning into a vampire, ergo, by his own logic, will then not have a soul.
It's not the most solid logic, you
It
know?
just doesn't check out. Feel however you want to feel about this issue. Obviously, we're not going to go into that more and tell you what you should do or not do. But like the logic just doesn't work for me. The logic doesn't work.
Yeah. I also like that Edward talks about thou shalt not kill is commonly accepted by most major belief systems, and I've killed a lot of people. And Bella's like, only the bad ones. And it just made me think of the show Dexter. Have you watched Dexter?
I have not, but I'm familiar with the plot.
It's a serial killer that only kills other serial killers. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure Dexter would not get into heaven. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
Like, I don't think that's how this works.
yeah, it's still pretty bad.
Yeah. Still murdering a lot of people, you know? Also,
Yeah,
Dexter is an excellent show. Highly recommended, although it is very violent. So,
yeah, yeah.
anyway,
Oh man, Amy watched it with her mom and her brother. How cute is that? Love a murder show for a family activity.
actually, no, I did not watch it with my family. My whole family watched it when I was like younger, when it first aired, and they were like, "You should not watch this." And I watched it later, actually, only like a couple years ago for the first time. I think maybe during the pandemic, the beginning. Yeah. Anyway,
Okay, yeah, yeah. I remember your family talking about it.
yeah, yeah. My whole family is definitely into that show, but.
Yeah. Uh, um, yeah. Edward finally says once again, as they're trying to work through their compromises together, not as successfully this time, um, he says, well, this is my line in the sand. Like, we have to be married before we sleep together. Uh, and Bella is like, well, I'll marry you and I'll like do all these things you want if you just let me sleep with you now, basically. And he's like, no. Also, it works out for me because then you'll want to marry me sooner. And also, if we're married, you can't put up an argument about me paying for your college.
Or a
Um,
car. Of
or a
course, it
car,
has to be cars again.
of course. Of course. What an appropriate moment to bring up sports cars. um, yeah, and he's kind of like, you just said you would agree to all these things, so like we're engaged. And she's like, no. And he's like, so you didn't mean any of that? And she's like, no, I did. I guess we're engaged.
I guess.
it's it's yeah, I don't know. I don't know. And then yeah, eventually it is slightly sweeter. Edward does. Oh, we also forgot to mention Jacob got her a bracelet with a charm on it, and then Edward gets her a charm to add to the bracelet, which I personally think is weird.
Yeah, it is really, really weird.
To add a
Really
charm
weird.
to Jacob's bracelet, not to get her own bracelet.
But it is made of this whole point that she doesn't want him to buy anything. And he's like, oh, what about giving you something that I've already had for a long time? And it's something that used to be his mom's. But yeah, it's still weird.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's cute that it was his mom's. It's the overall thing is weird.
Yeah.
Um, anyways, to jump ahead a little bit, he then is like, I have another hand-me-down. It's your ring is my mom. I'm going to give you my mom's ring. I have several questions about how his mom was able to afford this ring. I don't think they're super well off.
Yeah, I also have a lot
Uh,
of thoughts on
yeah.
this
So
ring with the movie portrayal. It's such an ugly ring. Such an ugly ring in the movie.
yeah, yeah, it is. I did a fair amount of Googling about the ring, so I will talk more about this.
Why? I was literally pulling up
Cute.
pictures to show.
Nice. Yeah. So we'll have to share pictures of like the book description versus the movie description.
Okay, here's for our YouTube viewers. I went through the effort of pulling. This is what it looked like in the movie.
Oh, it's just bright light.
No, it adjusted, didn't it? Can't you see now?
Yeah, it did now.
And then there was Reddit discussion about what it should have actually looked like if it was to the come on, accurate to the book. And that is a gorgeous ring. I just
Yeah.
such a missed opportunity. And apparently it was Stephenie Meyer who made the decision of the ring in the end, which I think is ridiculous. But anyway.
Yeah. I looked at a picture of the movie ring again and then read the description and I was like, I guess that's what it could have been. But yeah. Anyways, I think
When you think
it's not
about something from Edward died in like 1918 or something like that, a ring
yeah,
would not have looked like what it looked like in the movie. Like that other one,
yeah,
I feel like is much more accurate as to what it would look like at that time.
yeah, yeah. Anyways, yeah. So Edward is so happy. It is kind of like a cute scene, even though Bella is like kind of upset she's engaged.
Yeah.
Just feels weird to me. This chapter is weird vibes. Okay, but I'm sure you're curious, how much was the movie ring worth? Because that's what I was curious about.
I didn't look this up, so
I
I mean,
did.
it doesn't look like real stones. It looks like something you would buy at Claire's.
Yes. Okay, and that is because not one stone is real in the
Ah,
movie ring.
that
It
checks
is
out.
100% a fake. Okay, I also saw this as a more similar to the movie interpretation of the book ring, which I also thought was better.
Oh, that's pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah, that also makes more sense. I could see it being like that too.
Yeah. I don't know how someone makes that ring. Anyways, okay, but um so the ring, despite it having zero real diamonds and being the wrong color, because it says gold, apparently this one is white gold, which I guess was like the
But it says
trend.
the band was gold.
Yes, it says the band is gold, and the band is apparently white gold on the movie ring, which is like a thing as somebody who had friends getting concerningly engaged around 2012. I do know that was like white gold was like the in metal, you know. Um, but yeah, that's what all my friends wanted, and I was like, I want actual gold. Anyways, okay, so the ring, despite once again, it was real gold. None of the stones were real, and somehow they still valued it as at $5,000. And in fact, it went up for auction along with a bunch of other Twilight memorabilia and props from the movie. And they estimated that the bidding was going to be between $3,000 to $5,000 for this movie prop. Amy, I would like you to guess what you think it went for.
20,000.
Ah, less. Bummer.
Okay.
It went for just under $17,000. That
Okay,
someone
that's still insane.
for a fake ugly ring
Yeah.
from Twilight, but still, yeah,
I'm not surprised, unfortunately. That's insane, but I'm not surprised.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. So that's that. That's where we end with the engagement, which means we're gonna get the entire battle in the next section.
Yeah. I
It's
remember some stuff that happens in the next section, but only details of it, and I am really excited to piece it together and see what the heck happens.
oh great. Uh thank you so much again, guys. Next week we are reading chapter 21 through the epilogue and watching the rest of the movie. And yeah, then it'll be the end of Eclipse. We're flying through.
Yeah.
Flying through.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.